He stood up. In the middle of a United States Senate hearing, in front of every major television network in America, the founder of the most powerful social media company in history pushed back his chair, turned away from the microphone, and faced the families sitting behind him. No one had ever seen this before. Not in any hearing, not in any congressional room, not once in the history of big tech being called before Congress. And it happened because of one question. But to understand what that question was, and why it broke something that had never been broken before, you need to go back to the moment Josh Hawley walked into that room with a folder, because what was inside that folder had been buried for 3 years. January 31st, 2024. The Dirksen Senate Office Building, Washington, D.C., the Senate Judiciary Committee, had summoned 5 of the most powerful people in tech: Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, Cho of TikTok, Evan Spiegel of Snap, Linda Yaccarino of X, Jason Citron of Discord. The hearing had one name: Big Tech and the Online Child Sexual Exploitation Crisis. Not a hearing about privacy, not a hearing about data, a hearing about children who had been groomed, trafficked, blackmailed, and in dozens of cases, driven to suicide through platforms these 5 people personally built and personally profited from. The room was unlike anything Congress had seen before. Mothers held photographs of teenage daughters, fathers clutched printed Instagram screenshots, some wore blue ribbons, some were already crying before the first senator spoke. One mother had driven 11 hours from Georgia. Her daughter had been contacted by a predator on Instagram at the age of 14. She placed a framed photo on her lap and held it with both hands for the entire hearing. One question: if you were sitting in that gallery right now, what would you do? Tell us in the comments. Zuckerberg arrived in his gray t-shirt. His lawyers had spent weeks preparing him. Stay calm, deflect, survive. He had a net worth of $170 billion. He had survived congressional hearings before. He had a plan. He didn't know about the folder. If you've never seen a moment like this covered this way, subscribe. We find the parts they edit out. For the first hour, the pattern repeated itself without interruption. Senator asks a hard question. CEO gives a polished non-answer. Parents in the gallery wipe tears. Nothing moves forward. The 5 executives had rehearsed this. They knew the rhythm. They knew how to sound concerned without saying anything that could be used in a courtroom. Zuckerberg was the most practiced of all of them. Every question received the same block of answers. Meta has 40,000 employees in its safety division. Meta spent $5 billion on safety in 2023. Meta does not allow users under the age of 13. He delivered each line without hesitation, without emotion, like a man reading from a teleprompter that only he could see. The senators pushed. Zuckerberg absorbed every push and gave nothing back. He was untouchable. He had done this before. He knew how long 5 minutes lasted. He knew how to run out the clock. Until Hawley opened the folder. He held up a reference to a Wall Street Journal investigation, one that had landed like a detonation 3 years earlier. A whistleblower had leaked internal Meta research, hundreds of pages, deliberately suppressed, pages that showed something the company had never acknowledged publicly. Instagram knew, not suspected, not theorized, knew. Meta's own internal research proved that the platform was psychologically damaging teenage girls at scale. The algorithm had been specifically engineered to maximize time on screen. And the algorithm had discovered something that the engineers had chosen not to report, not to regulators, not to parents, not to Congress. The more distressed a teenage girl became, the more addicted she became. More anxiety meant more scrolling. More insecurity meant more time on the app. More depression meant more engagement. More pain meant more profit. Instagram had studied this, documented it, and continued running the algorithm anyway. These reports had been written directly to Mark Zuckerberg. He had seen them. He had approved the budgets of the teams that produced them. He had then testified before Congress and called the science inconclusive. He had spent years telling parents there was no proven connection between Instagram and the mental health collapse of an entire generation of teenage girls. Hawley looked up from the folder. "You knew about this for years," he said. "What did you actually do about it?" "We have made significant investments in tools that help parents." Hawley cut him off. "Have you personally compensated any of the victims?" A pause. "Mr. Zuckerberg, have you personally written a check to a single family who lost a child because of what your platform did? Yes or no?" "That's why we've built industry-leading tools for parents to manage." "That is not what I asked. Yes or no? Have you personally compensated anyone in this room?" Zuckerberg had no answer, because the answer was no. $170 billion in personal wealth. Not $1 had gone to a single grieving parent. Then Hawley stopped asking about money. He stopped looking at the prepared statements. He stopped looking at the folder. He looked past Zuckerberg, past the witness table, past the senators on the dais, directly at the gallery, at the 50 families, the photographs, the blue ribbons. "They are here," he said. His voice dropped. "Not theatrical, quiet. You are on national television. These families are in this room right now. They have photographs of their children, children who are not coming home." He paused. 3 full seconds. "Would you like to apologize to them? Directly. Right now." The chamber went completely still. No senator had ever asked this. In the entire history of televised congressional oversight, in every corporate scandal, every financial collapse, every pharmaceutical hearing where executives had stonewalled for hours, no senator had ever pointed at an audience of bereaved parents and asked the man responsible to physically turn around and face them. Every camera in the room shifted. Every journalist stopped typing. The parents in the gallery stopped moving. Zuckerberg looked at Hawley. He looked at his legal team. He looked at his notes. He looked at his hands. Then he pushed back his chair. He stood up. He turned away from the microphone. He turned away from the committee. He turned fully, completely, to face the 50 families sitting behind him. "I'm sorry for everything you've all gone through," he said. "No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered." Parents began to cry. Some stood. Some reached for each other. A woman in the second row pressed the photograph she had been holding all morning against her chest. A man 3 seats down put his head in his hands. CNN's correspondent broke from her script on live television. "In a moment unlike anything we've seen in these hearings before," she said, "Mark Zuckerberg was pushed to apologize directly to families. When Zuckerberg sat back down, Hawley didn't release him." "Your product is killing people," Hawley said. "Will you personally commit to compensating the victims who are sitting in this room today? Our job is to build the industry-leading tools and empower parents to—" "Your job," Hawley interrupted, "is to be responsible for what your company has done. You have made billions of dollars on the people sitting behind you here. Billions. And you are telling me your job is to build tools." There was no response. Senator Blumenthal waited for his turn. He pulled out a specific internal meta document, one of the memos that had surfaced alongside the Wall Street Journal investigation. He read one line. Then he looked at Zuckerberg over the top of his glasses. "This was written to you," Blumenthal said. "You read this, you knew what it said." Zuckerberg's expression did not change. Senator Lindsey Graham, who had spent decades defending corporate interests in this same chamber, looked down the witness table and said something no one had prepared for. "You have blood on your hands," he said. His voice was not raised. That made it worse. After 3.5 hours, 5 CEOs left the building. None of them committed to compensation. None of them agreed to legislative accountability. None of them surrendered the protections that shielded them from being sued by the families in that gallery. One of them had stood up, turned around, said 12 words, and then sat back down. The platform that had taken their children had 3.1 billion active users that same night. The algorithm was still running. The recommendation engine that Meta's own researchers had flagged as dangerous was still deciding in real time what content to show to which 14-year-old. And somewhere right now, tonight, a parent who has not yet lost their child is handing a phone to a 12-year-old who doesn't know what the algorithm already knows about them. The apology lasted 12 seconds. The algorithm never stopped.